This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on April 18, 2024, and was posted on Borough Hall website at www.hbborough.com and on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to my right and left of council chambers. Josh, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Foster,
Yes.
Councilwoman Canavera, yes, Councilman Ward,
Here. Here.
Council President Hurst,
Here.
Councilwoman Kim Cho Han,
Here.
Councilman Pistonik.
He's out sick.
Borough Attorney Shaw.
Here.
And Borough Administrator Rivera.
Here.
No formal action will be taken at this meeting. Discussion items up on this item is Upper Raritan River, the road diet, and then sub pump ordinance and reorganization meeting of 2025. So let's jump right into it with our road diet,
Thanks, Mayor.
which I'm excited about.
Yeah, so just as a quick orientation, as you know, Upper Raritan is kind of the area we're talking from 6th Avenue to the Edison border, okay? And we've been in discussions with DOT about a road diet for that area to address the traffic safety concerns and some of the fatalities that we had in that area. I recently was invited to a meeting to get an update from the meeting that the mayor, myself, and a couple other, Senator Gagnon and a few others attended with the commissioner's office and a lot of his senior staff to talk about status and next steps. Coming out of that meeting was they wanted some time to explore an alternative that, and I have some graphics, so just I'm going to give you a preamble and then we'll jump into some of the graphics. Some of the concerns that they heard from their own team, as well as from the Public Information Center, which is that online portal that they put up to gather kind of local community sentiments and concerns and questions. And so the alternative they wanted to look at was the possibility of adding in a center turn lane. So just to remind everybody, we're talking about the installation of bike lanes, one in either direction on Raritan Avenue, elimination of a lane of travel, so that you're essentially, going north or going south, there's one lane. But this alternative, the first alternative had bike lanes and just lanes of travel. The second alternative wanted to focus on the installation of a center turn lane so that when cars who might be turning left off Raritan, when cars are kind of behind them, they would be tempted to kind of go around and use the bike lane to go around. And that was a safety concern that the DOT had, and they wanted to put together a plan to show us about what a center turn lane might be. But before I jump into that aspect and some of that, I did want to give you a quick update. There were some short-term quick fixes, which my definition of quick and DOT definition of quick are a little bit different. But at that same meeting with DOT, they talked about some quick fixes, such as some higher visibility crosswalks at 11th and Raritan, and I believe at Washington, some new signage like school crossing signs and things like that, higher reflective signs. A lot of the signs were just tired in the area and you don't see them anymore, as well as looking at what's called a leading pedestrian interval, which basically gives pedestrians more time to cross the road before they allow the traffic to commence. So the engineering team is done and they put that work order in. That goes to another group, maintenance, and I'm still waiting on an update as to when they think those things. So those things are still going to happen, but they consider those quick fixes that they can do right away that still take time, because I guess the way it works is there's these different, all these different projects going on, and then eventually it's a work order into the maintenance department, and then it goes into a queue. So they were gonna get back to us on ETA, and I just haven't heard back yet. So those things are still on the table to be done while we wait. And as a reminder, the full implementation of the road diet is, 5 years from now, basically, based on the timeline we last saw. One of the encouraging things in my meeting was they're interested in pursuing what they call, I'm going to use their terminology. Hold on, I'm looking for one thing. But they wanted to, I printed out the wrong thing. Well, anyway, intermediate fix, intermediate project, but from my perspective is actually considerable, because what they proposed is they think by the end of next summer, they could do the striping aspects of a road diet, which most of this is striping. And then there's a lot of curbing and driveway access and stuff that has to happen, which could still happen on that longer timeline, but that they'd be willing, and they've stepped up the request with kind of some directive from the top to get this implemented sooner than later. And so one of the upsides is they think that they could get the work that's done on the asphalt basically done next year. And we would essentially have a road diet absent sidewalk improvements and curbing and some other stuff. And one of the reasons that takes a while is there's about at least 14 right of entry agreements that have to be entered into with all those individual property owners, and a lot more drainage and other engineering to do the concrete work. So coming out of that meeting, they basically said, Highland Park, the ball is in your court. Do you want this alternative, meaning the center lane? And if so, we need a resolution of support from the governing body for this alternative. I will tell you, this is the engineering folks that I was dealing with. This is their current preferred alternative. They didn't use that terminology. That might mean something specific to a DOT person, but they prefer the center lane option. They are concerned about cars going around, and they, of course, they're DOT, they care about traffic flow. And so it will facilitate some flow by having that center turn lane. So with that, I'd like to show some images, and then we can talk about it if that's good, Mayor. So give me 1 second. I don't know. That's way more weeds than I was. Okay. All right. I'm going to try to make, whoops, I'm stopping the share. Hold on. I picked the wrong, you have to pick a screen. Give me 1 second. So I don't get confused. All right, share that one. Share. Okay, and so what we're looking at up here, I jumped, hold on, let me go up to the beginning. Just to reorient everybody to Upper Raritan. This is what we have now. We essentially have 2 lanes of traffic in either direction, north and south, a buffer of different, what we would call the verge, our favorite term, and then the sidewalk. This is all DOT right of way. And this is our current road. So just as a kind of orientation. The first thing that they showed us, this kind of alternative number 1, that's my term, is a 6-foot bike lane with a 4-foot buffer, but no center turn lane. And just to, okay, I think you can actually, let me see if my pointer works this far. But the gist of it is, the upside of this, it's a much more generous bike lane for the biker. You have a lot more protection. Does this work? Yeah, no, it doesn't work on a screen. Isn't that interesting? So, you're basically getting between the 6-foot bike lane and the 4-foot buffer, 10 feet for bikes on either direction. Okay. But you run the risk of a car who gets frustrated waiting for someone who's making a left on one of our many unsignaled intersections to kind of go around and use that bike lane. Because remember, this is striping. There's no protection in this, in any of these alternatives that DOT is proposing to us. So alternative number 2, and forgive the difference, I pulled this, actually, Peter Bilton from Safe Walking and Cycling reminded me that this was in our 2003 master plan. So I took the scheme from that. It is not to scale, but essentially what this shows is what they're currently proposing. A 5-foot, this pedestrian on the side with the sidewalk, 5-foot bike lane, 11-foot lane of traffic, 12-foot turn lane in the middle, another 11-foot lane of traffic, and then a 5-foot bike lane. So now we're going from, 10 feet of bike area to 5. But we have this flow going, and I will say it was raised, at least to the extent that there was any consistent comment that I did see, was this concern about what if someone wants to make a left. And I'll say that the DOT folks were very concerned about that. And they were concerned about the safety of the biker as well as the flow on the roadway. So this is basically what they proposed. This is not their drawing again. And I will say the 2003 master plan had a 5.5-foot bike lane and an 11-foot center turn, but the DOT has told me 12 feet is kind of the required amount, the minimum width. I'm taking them at that. They did indicate that 5 feet does meet federal standards for a bike lane, but it is not, and we did get some comments from Safe Walking and Cycling, which I'll walk through in a minute. That is not kind of the complete street standard that, even DOT's best practices, is striving for, but it is not prohibited either.
What is complete street?
I have to look it up.
Okay,
It was in
yeah.
Peter's comments.
Was it?
It's in this note.
Or it was in something, so,
Yes, in the note.
but we only have so much width curb to curb. They're not gonna expand the width of the road, those are not on the table at this time. So in a nutshell, they've asked us if they want something to happen, especially if we want something to happen sooner than later, that we strongly consider this alternative. I have some slides that are the striping plan, just to give you an idea of kind of how this works on each section. So I would suggest, let me just flip through those. I am not the subject matter expert on the engineering drawings that you're about to see, but it will give you a flavor of kind of how they're approaching the project. And then I'll walk through some of the points that Safe Walking brought up and in their thing. Hold on, let me make this fit. Is there a different scale? Let's see if I can, can you just go up a little bit? Oh, come on, it's like, I can't catch a break, hold on. I want to zoom in because I know it's hard to see. So this is 6th Avenue at Raritan. And one of the really good things that they did go back, the original project was going to start at 8th. And this transition is really important. And so they did go back and include this intersection in the plan. So what you're seeing here is this crazy intersection, which we're all very familiar with. This is where Woodbridge Avenue splinters off over here on the kind of lower right-hand portion of the screen. And basically what you're seeing here is where our bike lanes will eventually kind of taper into and join kind of the downtown portion, for lack of, better terminology of it. So I will say this intersection is problematic from a traffic safety. And so I'm glad at least to be having improved striping and all of that goes along with this proposal. Does anybody mind if I keep flipping, or do you want to keep looking at this and then we can always flip back? I just don't
So
want
that's turn lanes into Super Fresh?
No,
No,
this is
six,
This is
six.
6. This is Woodbridge
Yeah, that's
Avenue.
up.
Doughboy.
We
Think
got-
Doughboy. Think
Other
Doughboy.
area,
That's
right?
5th.
Think
There's nothing
Doughboy.
changing at 5th.
Oh, that's.
This is
down.
Doughboy
6th
6.
Avenue.
Okay.
The Doughboy is
Yeah.
right here at the tip of this
Mhm.
little.
Yeah,
peninsula.
I'm looking to the. what is
This,
this,
nothing
the
happening. over
Nothing
there.
happens down to 5th. The only thing is
It
that
it stops here,
Yeah.
like right around here, where all these little, and this is all striping, just to
Yeah.
be really clear.
Okay.
This- Oh, gosh. gosh, sorry, it's gonna be annoying. Where's the dumb little hand that allows you to move the screen? Oh, well.
Can you pinch to zoom?
Yeah, I wish,
Yeah, that's
right,
better.
Matt? Oh, wait, here. I
Yeah,
just wanna-
yeah, that's
it's-
better.
it's a
Yeah,
long-
that's good. Yeah, that's
So
good.
that, you know.
So then you can show
So
the
this is now
sections.
eighth, this is where it was originally, and this is a more
Mhm.
typical section where you can see the turn lane here, the bike lane over here, the traffic lane here. And so you can see the bike lane goes up and then eventually is gone once you get to through the 6th Avenue intersection, because parking resumes on Raritan Avenue at that
From
point.
15.
So it looks a lot like this. Let's just keep going down the road.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And you can
good.
see where we have these turns.
Yeah, that's good.
So here we go. So again, I guess that's only a one, you know, some of these particulars, I'm not versed enough to defend or explain, but you get the idea that what they're trying to achieve here. And the plan has a lot of detail. I will tell you, I shared this with the police department. CME has looked at it, is generally comfortable with the turn lane alternative. You know, I think, you know, both alternatives do work, but it's a trade-off that we're looking at having to make. I'm not sure what that box is.
The envelope, what is that envelope?
I don't know. I have to look into it, Mayor. They all have keys and I'll have to, down to
Okay,
the key to
okay,
tell
it's
you.
okay, it's okay.
I think it's at the end of the sheets. But one of the advantages, this is, by the way, this is just to do that 70% improvement. This doesn't show all the sidewalks and driveway work that would come in as in the
Which
later
is what we
phase.
wanted was to get done, because this project, they told us like 4 years out it's gonna take, so.
Yeah.
The 70% that should have taken like 3 years in, we're gonna get next summer, so.
Now, here's
we're really
Washington,
happy with
Mayor,
that.
where we have the flashing light
Mhm,
crossing.
mhm,
Just, I know that's a high priority there.
yes.
I know the question has come up, could we get more traffic lights? They are not willing to look at that at this point, at least in the last couple meetings I've had. That's not something they're looking at this time. But there's nothing in this that would preclude the installation of a traffic intersection, a signalized traffic intersection at a later date. But they've been pretty much told me, no, we're not looking at that. Let me see, and you just go left to right, just pick up where we left off. Again, you can see where you have these, some of these arrows turning left are for driveways, just to be clear, I believe.
Mhm.
But I think our real concern, and this is where basically, let's see if that's the last one or not. Here we got one more. So this is kind of where we're going from the typical, from the Edison border over into, I'll just go back just so everybody can see that a bit, a little bit better. You know, transitioning in, the bike lanes don't start until this kind of Columbia Street area, because they need some time to transition
Right.
down, you know, throttle the number of traffic lanes and then introduce the official bike lanes at that point. And hopefully one day, you know, this can get extended further down, you know, into Edison and beyond.
I did,
you know.
Terry and I did meet with Mayor Joshi, and we suggested that we work together to get this done. So that would.
These are all just kind of, these are all the keys to everything we just looked at, but here's just some of the kind of typical signals and specifications. So that's the gist. I would like to walk through some of the comments. I know I gave you copies of the SWAC comments, but I just thought it would be helpful to talk about that briefly, if you don't mind, or Phil, if you wanted to. I don't want to.
Yeah, I can add in, go ahead.
Hold on, how do I end this page here?
The X. Okay.
I gotta get back to the Zoom.
X?
Oh, no, Mary, you can't see what I can see. That's.
Okay, I'm looking at the X, I'm like,
I
the
know,
X, the
it's-
X.
On my screen, the Zoom
Oh.
became this big, because I maximized, so I'm gonna stop the share. So basically, we provided the plans I just walked you through. And I should mention, Peter Bilton was with us when we met with the commissioner's officer. He had the benefit of hearing that discussion. And I gave him kind of the same overview that I shared with you guys previously. And then they met and they discussed it, and they gave us a short email memo kind of with some of the flavor of what was discussed. So, Phil, I'm sorry, did you say you wanted to hand?
No, go ahead.
So there was not, I guess, a consensus, if I'm reading this correctly, that there's some folks who really felt the center lane was important. And then there were some folks who are really concerned about having kind of a less optimal bike experience. It'll maybe not, it is a busy roadway, and having a little more buffer between the bicycles and the cars would be preferred. But they did acknowledge that concern about using the bike lanes to get around traffic that was kind of stuck behind left-hand turners. But then some liked going back to the alternative one, as I put it, because of gives the bike more comfort, more encouraging to get people to use it. And I guess the way I think about it is they're probably both points are right. And it's a trade-off, to some extent. There was some points about improved signalized crossings throughout town, not just an additional signalized crossing, which I already addressed. To some extent, not to mean we can't talk about it further with them. The physical separation from the bike lane to protect, especially with if we go with the center turn option, I don't think they have enough space there to do that safely. And that's not envisioned in either scenario, and we can certainly give that comment. But I think for maintenance and a lot of reasons, they're inclined to go with striping as the main way to differentiate. There was a suggestion about doing kind of a raised bike lane even to give it a little more, which I thought was an interesting idea. But again, that's not what's being proposed, especially in the 70% alternative that they presented to us. There was the point about how are we going to connect this beyond Route 27 throughout town? How do we do that? And I think that's a good point. I don't know that that's DOT's problem to solve, but it's one that we'll have to think about. But again, we're piecing, just like our sidewalks, we do bit by bit where we can, where they're missing. That's kind of been how our bike ped plan is set up to help us start filling them in where we have the infrastructure for bicycle and pedestrians, where we have these opportunities, and we do have that here. And they liked the leading pedestrian interval for a lot of that. So that's kind of an overview. I don't know if any of the folks here are from SWAC or not, I don't know, but when we get to public comment, we can.
Yeah, we can ask that.
Yeah. But that, you have that, and I appreciated their taking the time to look
Just
at
to
it.
add in on some of the discussions, there really was no complete agreement, but I think the leaning is toward the center turn lane. Some of the other suggestions were best of all possible worlds, like the separation of the bicycle lanes. Within the department, the enforcement will be, of course, getting everybody used to it, but the construction portion of it, when they're marking the road off and closing it off to do the striping, will at least begin to introduce people. So there's some concern with that. Observing the bike lanes and the center turn lanes, I deal with a lot of them at work. Literally going to work and staring at a county road that's divided like that. Sometimes it is used as a traffic lane. You'll see people blowing by it, and it just happens that the entrance to my office complex is directly in front of my window, so I watch that. And it's an area of concern sometimes, but not enough on a very busy county road that I think it's a major concern. So, and I think that SWAC was leaning towards, and I'm leaning towards supporting the center turn lane resolution. The other concerns were separating. There were a lot of concerns about cyclists. And I think that's come about in discussing it at our meetings and informally. because I'm riding my bicycle now in town, I'm only taking my bicycle, even shopping at Superfresh. Is that there is a lot more bicycle traffic because of the advent of electric bikes. So that there is a lot more concern with, making sure that the bike lanes are safe, and the big concern is people using it as passing. But I think eventually it's going to take some time to settle that down. No matter what we do with the road diet, it's been this way for everybody's lifetime. Is like you slam on the brakes at North 8, and that's what everybody does. And that's lifestyle is going to change. So a lot of it is we're probably going to have to do a lot more enforcement to get people to get used to the change. But I think SWAC by and large supports the basic layout that we've already talked about. The consensus is it's probably the best of all possible worlds.
From SWAC.
From SWAC, yeah.
And
The memo says there's a little bit of a split because some of the more cyclists, more cycle-oriented want the slightly wider bike lanes, because 6 foot is the normal.
6 foot, I didn't want to
6
say.
foot
that
is the
you-
normal, 5 foot is accepted. If you drive River Road every day, you'll see that I think they're only 5 feet in most areas, and they taper off because they're measured from the center. The markers are usually from the center line, not from the shoulder, so that you can see it's going to waver a little bit. But I just get a sense that probably the one that's going to be most acceptable generally to the public is going to be the center turn lane with the cycle lanes, and we're not going to be able to separate them at any time in the near future. So it's going to be the striking plan.
I know
Okay.
since the last time we talked about this, I travel 27 every day from Fifth all the way up to Elizabeth. And I've been paying attention, and at first I thought just the 2 lanes would be fine, but with paying more attention since the last meeting, the center lane I feel is definitely needed.
Anyone else?
Stephanie Search.
So can we put on the stripes, you know how in the city they have those plastic posts that kind of like, if you're a driver, you don't know. if
No.
it's-
That's a separated, and
Yes.
even that.
Oh,
yeah.
that's
Separated
called a.
lane.
I even brought the
separation
pictures that
thing.
I had seen and
Yeah.
brought it to them.
That, I mean, one can, it is physically possible, but that is not being proposed, and they don't.
They weren't
I
agreeing
think
with it.
there's a lot of maintenance that goes into that, and especially with snow plowing,
Mhm,
all that
Yeah,
stuff.
they're not gonna-
Having those, you mean those plastic flexi?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
flex,
to-
right,
They have them
right,
on
right.
college.
The bollards on Livingston.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I'm not a big fan of the aesthetic of that, and I don't
It's
know
very
enough
old.
about the utility, but that's, I mean, DOT does not want to do that at this time. That's
I
not
brought in
what they
pictures
proposed.
because
Well, we can certainly ask again. I mean, that's partly why we're having this conversation.
Well, then probably some cyclists will just be on the sidewalk, then if you don't feel safe, if it's too tight and narrow, like how many people do we really see on on River Road? Biking and,
you mean on Raritan?
no, on River Road, right? Just think about that area
Actually see
too.
quite a
Cause
bit,
that's
Yeah.
what, five, yeah,
especially because of
but,
the park. I do
but,
see.
and then all of the accidents, that's been, what is that, the same, 5 feet, whatever, bike
it's
lane
5
there,
foot
it's barely a shoulder.
I mean, I hear what you're saying.
They can't put anything to separate, like, because even those plastics, anything, if I see it, like, you don't know, oh, I'm gonna
I mean, it
damage
won't
my
actually
car.
protect you. I mean, as a
Yeah,
biker,
it
you know
won't,
that,
but
right?
I think as even it's very tight for cyclists there too.
The original
something.
proposal doesn't have any either, but it does have that additional buffer area, so there's a little more distance.
So we get more space.
I thought, I know that, I guess that was further up, one time I saw something else.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever gonna get
No, they
any
told me
space
no.
in the right of way. We're not, we have trouble with sidewalks. Once you get past, sidewalks already.
Because you have the
ADA
sidewalk, you
compliant.
have the buffer. You have two things.
That's one of the upsides
of
of
them are not.
That's one of the major.
one of
That's
the
because DOT widened the road.
one of the
Yeah, we get the
upsides
bigger
of
road.
the
For cyclists.
The full blown out project is the sidewalk improvements, because
Yeah.
I kind of blew past that.
Mhm.
It's really important, because you're right, the pedestrian environment is very poor in this area. And the final proposal for that, which we don't have the final designs, but imagine, getting those up to where they should be to code. And even some have lost their sidewalk, they just look like driveway.
They
look
just
like-
got
they
paved
just
over,
got
they need
paved
to be
over, yeah.
milled down
There's
and
no
all that kind of stuff needs to
differentiation.
happen.
So that will be addressed, not in this shorter time.
Right. I did have some questions.
Uh,
but
but
Matt, I
let-
think you
let's-
have
yes.
to state.
Well, no, so I guess I have some in the weeds questions and then some bigger, maybe I'll start with the bigger picture questions, like the quick fixes that they're talking about. Does that lock in everything down the road? Is there, how
The
much?
quick fixes that were like better crossings, that stuff,
Well,
or
so,
the 70% thing.
yeah, we went through, they put out that survey, which people went, in on, and they raised a bunch of concerns on that survey. And is this the response to that? And this is what we get, or is there gonna be another response to a new plan? Like, the question I have is,
You mean the public information center
yeah, the public,
aspect?
so the public information, last time that there was a website that you could go to, I don't know how many people did, I don't know how many, it sounds like there was some feedback that people gave. And are they gonna do that again with the center turn lane, or are they saying this is in response to what people said, or is this?
It's a
This was in
combination,
response.
it's a combination of what people said, what we requested in the meeting, and what we've been talking about collectively.
Okay, so
So
they're not
this is
gonna
a-
go back to a public information camp.
I don't see them
I
going
didn't
back
get
to
that
public
impression, but that's
information.
I didn't ask that in that pointed of a way, so I think
I think with what we have
if
and
the
we're
council's
proposing to put.
resolving to do this at some point, and that's what triggers these 70% improvement, I think that's the preferred alternative at that point.
Okay, so there's, because it did feel like when they did the public info, that was at least asking somebody, and if they're not asking.
And I think they did read through that stuff.
They did.
And
They
this
said
is
they
in
said
part-
they did.
A lot of it was not stuff that you can respond to
Right.
in terms of design. It was more macro concerns in general. And also a lot of it was, can you do this sooner, please? My God,
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
That was the
So
biggest
I think they
concern.
are reacting to that aspect.
Yeah.
And so they're willing to kind of expedite, but they want the endorsement of the governing body before they do that.
Okay, so do we have an opportunity to go and say, here's a couple, like, I actually wrote down the same thing Stephanie did about those sticks. Is there an opportunity for, like, one of the things in the pictures was, it goes, sidewalk, buffer, bike lane, right? And then driving.
That wasn't an official picture from them.
Well,
No, that one, the one that was, the ones here, I'll put it back up just so we all talk about the same thing.
I mean, I don't want to play traffic.
No, and I am also not, like,
Not that
this is
one.
not, I know what I know and I'll say.
Right, and I-
So this is current, sorry, let me go to the next. This is a DOT scheme.
Mhm.
This was what they presented at that public information center
Right.
that you're referring to.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about is here we have our bike lane, here we have our, I don't know if you can even see me waving things around,
can.
a buffer, and here's my lane of traffic.
Go to the next one.
The next one, I had to, because I don't have this equivalent from
The
them,
light gray
I
is the
stole this from the
sidewalk.
master plan.
Right.
Right.
But so my question is that we have sidewalk, buffer, bike lane.
Buffer
traffic.
is, yeah,
The
that's,
buffer's
that's
the
what,
verb.
that is what it is.
There's no way to do sidewalk, bike.
No,
lane,
because
buffer.
that's curb right there where that tree is on, and that's removing a whole, that's big bucks. So this is the verge where that tree is,
Right.
okay?
So
And that's the curve, which we have to have. So outside of it, you'd be talking about widening the road and change, and that's not in the cards.
Well, I mean, I guess I was just wondering if you flip this and stripe this at least, then you have a.
Flip
Right,
what?
the
I'm sorry.
verge.
It's the verge.
No, that's
No,
the
you
verge.
can't. This is, imagine that's
That's
4
the
inches.
sidewalk where the grassy area
Right.
is.
That's 4 inches higher. Yeah.
So the question.
No, I get what that's saying.
I mean-
I wish, but if this was all
Yeah.
on asphalt, yes.
Yeah.
But that is a
It's that's the
curve.
up, the, yeah,
And,
yeah.
And then you need to have the buffer between the sidewalk and the road, and that's a much bigger engineering project. I don't think they're gonna get rid of her.
Okay.
So,
To answer your question, Matt, I had a picture because I was in LA and they had, where they had those bolsters and everything else and they had the strips.
Right.
No, the answer is no. I didn't get a yes from them on that.
Yeah, they're not gonna do it.
And it's because they don't want to maintain it.
I have made that assumption
It's
because
not because they don't want to
It's the snow
maintain
and
it, it's
everything
the
else.
price of maintaining it in the snow and stuff like that. I have a friend who is a supervisor for their maintenance department.
Right.
And he said there's no way they're going to do that.
Unless we eat it.
they'll,
Or we don't.
I don't even know if they'll let us do it. man.
No,
They won't.
they won't,
Yeah.
They won't.
because they have to.
How do you,
plow it.
what, don't you just go over, like, how do you, I don't know.
They would have to
We
go.
don't.
It wouldn't get
Plow
snow, that's all,
27.
it would get
They
plowed.
plow 27.
Yeah, we're not allowed to plow.
We just have to
27.
have they'd have to have a bike lane plow and a regular plow, and they don't want to do that.
Well, and the problem is the plow is gonna knock those things.
Bolsters over anyone.
Or the snow getting pushed into them.
And
And they just, the wear and tear,
Mhm.
I mean, I've watched the ones on College Avenue. They don't look fresh as a
They
daisy
get
4
busted
years,
up
5 years
easily,
later,
yeah.
you know.
They're basically designed to be relatively disposable and contact neutral if a car or someone or some person hits it. They're designed to break away. They're semi-flexible, and they're basically considered disposable because they put a socket into the roadway that they plug into the socket. So that to replace them, they just drive around with the truck and keep sticking new ones in where the old ones are broken.
Mm.
But the problem is in the snow plowing and any other road maintenance. Plus, you're, even in the middle of the summer, you're still going out and servicing them because they get knocked down by cars, a larger truck that's doing a delivery or making a turn. So there's a lot more maintenance involved to them. And it doesn't delegate to us, it delegates to the state. So we wouldn't even be able to control it.
What about paving? Because paving the road before.
They're gonna pave it
You're
All of that
repave the
is
road?
and then
Yeah.
put the stripes.
Okay, I just wanted
I
to
don't
make sure
know
that
about
they're
it
paving.
between the 70% and the final. I don't know for
I
sure,
don't know how
but
much
they've been doing.
It just feels like it's a deal thing to do, to not pave it and then pave it and then we have to redo it or something.
Strike it first,
To strike
No,
it
it's
first,
their road.
then pave it and then. strike
They
it.
are,
that's
they
right.
have been, I don't know if you've driven up through,
So,
I'm sure you
yeah.
all have. They've
Yeah,
been
through-
doing it
Yes.
and we
Right.
got notification a year or so
Mhm.
ago
Yeah.
saying it's a maintenance to just, they're doing it. So my assumption, but never assume, but that's on them really, you know, that they would put this on fresh asphalt,
Mhm.
you know, and that they might have been waiting on the outcome of this before, you know.
Okay.
Continue, yeah.
So the other question I have, or one of the other questions, is coming off onto Raritan from the side streets, right?
Mm.
You're turning on into a bike lane. Like when you go onto the Raritan right now, you're gonna cross a bike lane. Do they have any ideas of what could be on Columbia or Washington or any of those streets to help people as they're coming off of, onto Raritan, to recognize that you gotta look for bikes, not just
Here, I'm gonna share, sorry, I shouldn't have stopped the share.
Whether there's signage or.
signage or
Here's how they
something.
handled that and we did a mini version of this
Mhm.
on Walter with the Frederick when we did the bike lane there. The visual cues, I don't know all the answers to your question, but the main thing, you see where the bike lane becomes dashed?
Yeah.
That's the visual cue to and I don't know if there'll be little bikes in there or what. I don't know enough to know the answer to that
Yeah.
question.
Usually.
But see that,
Sure.
there's a lot of these little,
Graphics.
you have to
of like-
review,
right.
to go to the key to find out what E means, like, I don't know, or F or whatever. So this is basically telling the car, hey, there's a pedestrian crossing
Right.
here. And as you're easing into the intersection, you see that dash, dash, dash. That's telling you that's the bike lane now.
Mhm.
Be careful, just like you have to be careful for pedestrians, you gotta be careful of bikes and make your right-hand turn or your left-hand turn.
And that's striping, not bumps.
Those are
That's
straight.
right. Just a FYI, if you want to see it, if you go by the stadium and then you get to the light there, it's marked, you'd see what it looked like there.
Mhm.
I know that the negotiations between business owners up and down or whoever, like, there's a couple places that seem like they're, can be really problematic, like in front of the ice cream store. We have, you know, as you're coming down in front of the ice cream store, is there a way we can make a request for something to say, I don't know what, to highlight the fact that there is not only a bike lane, there is a walkway, and then there is 50 kids standing out in front, standing in line, and maybe there's others, maybe up farther on, there are others.
That's, I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't consider it. I don't know that that's in, and probably shouldn't say this, but I don't know if that's what when they think of a road diet, they're literally just thinking of how are we going to shrink this,
Yes.
the pavement down. But I don't see why they wouldn't be willing to talk about other kinds of signage or, you know, I just don't know what those are to ask them for that, but we could certainly identify some of those concern spots, I would think, and say, what else can we throw at this to make it safer? You know, or at least alert cars more. I do have, when the full deployment at the 100%, you know, rollout, I don't know to the extent that some of these driveways might shrink because they maybe exceed what's required. I don't know the answer to that. We did look at that on Woodbridge Ave, which is a county road, and we did shrink some of those driveways as part of that plan, which also might help make it safer for pedestrians as they're walking through the neighborhood.
Okay.
Along
Does the speed
with-
change at all?
They do not propose a speed change with this.
That was-
My strong hope is
Yeah, we need.
any form of road diet by just having additional
It's gonna reduce the
striping and
speed.
shrinking of the feel of the roadway will have a result of
Not these
causing
days.
some speed to naturally go down. But right now they're talking, I think it's 35 now, and that's still what they're saying. We can still have that conversation with them.
Because I
As long as
tried
we
to say
saw-
that in Hoboken and Jersey City, how they made it 25 for the whole thing, and, you know, why can't they make it 25 for us?
Right. If we can make that.
I don't think saying yes to either or anything with a road diet means we can't.
Go back.
We
and
have to give up
No,
the
we
fight
need to-
on the 35-30
We need to-
request.
A lot of the concerns here, I think
And-
would be, I'm sorry.
And just to follow up in my conversation with Senator Dyckman, because I keep in touch with him a lot on, he just said, whatever we have, just keep bringing him in on the loop. So some of the points that was made tonight, we can always put something back together and say, Senator, here's some of the concerns that we're gonna go with X, but here are some of the concerns that we want to have considered into the plan as we move forward.
The last one I have, we struggle with enforcement on turning left on North Fourth. So if we're gonna rely on enforcement, I don't, that doesn't seem realistic to me to change that in some respects. Unless we change, I mean.
I would speak somewhat anecdotally and somewhat as Elsie would know. Many years of prosecuting traffic tickets in Highland Park. I think we're more likely to see more enforcement along 27 than there usually is. The issue at North Fourth, I had a really interesting shouting match a couple of weeks ago at North Fourth with someone who my wife and I addressed them from the curb saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir, you can't turn left here." And they turned and almost hit me. You know, and we shared the Jersey bird with each other as we were walking across the street. I think that's an entirely, there's a different issue there. I think that the law enforcement's ready to do that to the extent that there's people are speeding or that there, you know, right now there are no real significant restrictions on the turns. There's the traffic light and the pedestrian walkway, and we can increase there. But I don't know that the enforcement problem is the same as Fourth.
Yeah, no, it's different.
Fourth, the signage needs to change so that people are actually seeing it. And the shifts need to change so that we have someone who's not coming off a shift and writing up reports and getting ready to leave, which is when most of the people have the problems. And it's not just at Fourth, it's all along Raritan with the left.
And it's the same
turn.
people that come to the council meeting and cry for these enforcement. I see them last week doing the same thing.
Yep,
Yeah, I
but
understand. They're different things.
the chief and I are already talking about this, and along with Slack, we actually have a meeting planned for January to start, you know, phase 2 of the recommendations here as the planning goes through to keep everybody in the same loop going on. But I think the enforcement will be a little bit different there, and they will cooperate in trying to basically herd the people along, I think.
As long as we can keep asking questions and keep asking for
Yeah.
stuff and keep pushing for the safety aspect of throughout this
Absolutely.
process.
Absolutely.
I'm comfortable moving ahead with
Yeah.
whatever the resolution they need to move forward. I just don't want to preclude us from.
I'm not
adapting
bashful about
over
going back and forth and going
time.
back.
You're such
and
a
back,
shrinking
know?
violet. Mayor.
Yeah, I'm just that little
I
shrinking violet that's gonna go away. No.
Oh, sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
No, that, I mean, I just want us to be able to have the ability to, because we do have some concerns, we do have some ideas, and I think the town has some ideas, and as long as we're able to continue those where you guys think that we have a possibility of success. You know, I sometimes talking to the DOT is like talking to a table, but sometimes if they seem like they're willing to work with this, they seem like they've gotten the
Yeah,
heads up that this is something that we want, that Gagnon wants and all of that, if we can have those conversations keep going, I think we can keep going.
100% agree. I think we want to get as much as we can done before the administration changes again. Good, then there's that.
and we don't know what it's gonna be.
So I just have two questions. If that's
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead. No, I just have to.
My main concern is reducing the speed limit there. If anything, it should probably match what the rest of Raritan Avenue is at 30. So that's an advocacy point that we should.
Raritan is 35.
No, Raritan between Second and between the bridge and Fifth is 30. Yeah. And then
I just saw the sign last week and I was in one of the restaurants.
it's 35 north of the triangle. I drive it every day. And also I strongly support a center turn lane. I think that is also essential as far as traffic, not as far as, while traffic flow is not our first priority here. Reducing the reducing the volume and the access points and the many situations that could lead to a traffic accident, I think it's really important. And I've seen it work. I mean, if you go to Livingston Avenue, Mettler's Lane, I'd be interested in the dimension and the bike lane dimensions on those roadways.
Or the two you said,
Mettler's and Livingston, they're both county.
Yeah, well, we can find out, just because it helps us paint a picture.
Yeah, Livingston was I feel is highly successful reconfiguration. They did do the bollards there. They ain't pretty. They probably could have done a little more as far as visual aesthetics, but reducing the 2 lanes and having that center turn lane, and also all of the feeder roads are residential, just like on North Raritan. So we're going to be dealing with a lot of the same issues there.
I think it's 5 on Metler. I think it's 5.
Is it 5 feet?
5-foot bike lane?
That's a different type of road. I mean, it's definitely, it's not like Livingston Ave, but I think Livingston Ave really is a good example.
Yeah.
Schools,
Livingston is
residential.
I think a wider.
It's a wider roadway.
They
Yeah, it's a
had
little-
more space to play with,
Right.
unfortunately for us.
But it's just as far as maybe what we can expect with
Sure.
the turn lanes, people are concerned about that. And then, yeah, I'd be really interested also just, thank you for my last point, that 30% sounds really critical. Contextual,
Oh, the remaining 30%,
yeah.
yes, of
So
course.
contextualizing the 70% in the actual physical improvements that we're looking at as far as, different paved surfaces. I know SWAC advocates for the slightly raised crosswalks and bike lanes. I like that idea. So those are things that we should be.
I did ask today when I had a quick call with them and said, what about that, could we do something? And they said, well, we don't do that, it's like, it is, everything is kind of, we got to this point, which if you had asked me 2 years ago, we were here, and they were gonna figure out the 70% thing, I would not have bet on it, so never give up.
We should read through the regulations. They actually control those. They have the standards that the DOT puts out, and you have to look them up, and so but they would allow
Control.
on state roads. They allow.
Oh,
those.
the raised.
They put the standards out for them, but they don't allow.
You can advocate for a change of the law. Statement.
Thank
you. I'm sorry.
Those
That was.
are
all.
good
I agree
points.
with everybody else.
Okay,
Phil?
No, I had the same question. I think it should decrease to 30 at some point about the middle of the transition. And I think it's very important. I think we need to really advocate it strongly. Reducing the speed creates a transition mentally between the people coming in from Brookline, where the road suddenly squeezes down, and whether it becomes habitual after 3 years or not, doesn't matter. Somewhere along the line that needs to transit down where, because as you get closer to town, if you watch, the closer you get to town, you get about to the shul, and suddenly you're seeing more pedestrian and more bicycle traffic, and bicycle traffic has really picked up lately. People are actually using it as a main means of transportation. Some of it a little scary, that they shouldn't be doing, but that's neither here nor there. The other question I had too is, since we now have extended it to 6, then we have 3 different jurisdictions at that corner. We have the county, we have the state, and we have the borough. Is the state contemplating controlling the turning there? We lost the Doughboys Head at one point in time because of the turns there. But now that they're extended there, I think we have to consider, the turning question. For all of the different directions, because it stopped at 8
Unfortunately, even if
before.
you tell them not to, the
It
stupid
stopped at
trailers
8.
are gonna
So
try to
if
turn around.
if it is the state's fault, they will replace the Doughboy with the Taj Mahal.
You're
If it
right.
happens again.
Okay.
But
I'll
now
get
that
some
they've
clarification on
extended,
that.
now we know that it's extended. I think we need to get their spin on it, so we can go to the county and say, the state's planning on doing this. We need to get it into their planning as well. Because
And it
What was
could
the question again? I got lost.
the
the
plan,
Doughboy, the
the
turning, I
plan
know, but
now
I was sorry.
extends to 6.
Uh-huh.
What's the state's policy gonna be
Okay, yeah, okay.
on turns? And are we gonna consider,
Mm.
because I'm just concerned that people are suddenly starting to use, like they do, my favorite street, my street, Johnson, is the traditional cut through from Route 27. Are they gonna start using Abbott or Sixth or somebody like that as a cut through? What is DOT?
Just so you're
General.
talking about making,
Westbound 27 at the Doughboy,
left turns onto 6.
left turn onto
Got it.
Woodbridge, right turns onto 6. Since since the road diet is now
I'm just leaving it
extending,
turning,
it's almost to the
I'm
center of town.
confused again.
Are they, what is the consideration regarding turns there?
Okay, I'll find out.
Mhm. Okay.
So how, with the resolution, will these concerns, we're saying yes to the center turning with blah, 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 or with continuing safety concern? Like, I don't want to say, yes, we accept, like, how would it be in the resolution?
Well, we can
The
make it
reso would
whatever
say-
you want.
We can say, yes, we're accepting what they're proposing to do to get the 70%, but these are going to be continuing questions as they're looking to do the next 30, or as the conversation continues, that these are the things that we want to be included going forward. I think it might be best for us to say yes to get 70% done, rather than waiting for 100% or another 85% to get done. So if we get a portion of it done, and then we have these questions to include, then we should move ahead with what we have now, and then continue the conversation to get more done.
But it might be easier to get that done.
Let's get the 70%
after-
done.
No, I mean, after you get the 70% done, it might be easier for you to get that other stuff.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's gonna be in the resolution, like our concern.
You want, when we put the resolution, what's on the table?
Summarize, whatever.
I have to make up the resolution. There's
Right.
no
Oh.
template they've told me to
Mhm.
follow. So in my mind, and I have not written it, was something to the effect, if there was support, we support the center turn lane. We request, I'm basing it on this conversation on the fly, concerns about having any separation or differentiation besides striping between the bike lane and the traffic lane, and would encourage DOT to consider other alternatives like flexible bollards, like
Where you-
Blink, Blank, and Blue, maybe
Okay,
that we
okay.
can
Yeah.
do some Googling, figure out some, we don't prescribe this, we can point out the ongoing areas of concern. the miles per, we can voice our concern
About
about
the
the miles
25
per
miles
per
hour
hour. Yes.
speed limit on there that, yes, we think this will help control speeds to some extent, but the bottom line is this road should not be 35 miles per hour, whereas we will look forward to working with you, but we eagerly await the interim improvements or something.
But we
like
don't
that.
want to say we're not, we want to move forward with the 70.
Yes, but
Okay.
I just want them, because they want a resolution from us.
Yeah.
Right, so
Yes.
in the resolution.
We can do those add-ons.
But.
We can
So
add,
that's,
yeah.
Yeah.
that's
But
where
they
my
know-
mind
but
was.
But the idea is that there's still, they know that there's more work to be done, though.
They do, because they know there's
There's that
another 30.
30%,
Right.
but basically the paint on the street
Yeah,
is what they are gonna be focused on, and any other signage they need to do to effectuate that.
well, to Stephanie's
Road
point, I mean, when do we get to the point where they do start giving some more concrete proposals for that, for the visual infrastructure?
They told us that we had until 2028.
Right.
So if we want to wait till 2028 to get all of that done, I was over the moon happy when they said they could make it happen, but the 70%
Yeah,
this coming summer.
got it.
So whatever we're gonna add on, it's the add-on to, yes, we want 70% done, but we want you to consider all of these add-ons. And then not that we're gonna forget about the other 70%. We want to keep 70%. I want to be hounded them every 2 weeks or every month going, when am I getting it done? Can't you make an exception? We really need this, such a dangerous area, blah, 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 whatever I'm gonna say to try to get this done earlier. And to get all of these suggestions that was put in here to have them in the plan as well.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Stephanie and Terry are saying, I'm not sure I would go overboard and put every little inning. I think I would add a clause.
I don't want them to
more like
slow it
Terry
But
would
areas
say,
of concern. we're
Right,
going to,
area,
you
yeah.
know,
I didn't want them to,
continue to have areas of
And we wanna work
concern,
with you to come up with the best,
particularly
the
the
best
speed
solutions.
reduction
Yeah.
and other
And we can even
suggestions.
say consideration of additional signalized intersections over time, things like that.
I wouldn't even, I don't know that I would get
I
too
would.
fancy. They
All
know,
that.
they know what's there. I'm not sure at this point in time. I want to get to 70%. And I don't want to waste any more time on the 70%. The other stuff is going to get done when the stuff that they're talking to finalize this project is super significant and it's going to take a lot. But I agree with Stephanie that we should put in a hint. We also want this stuff, but I don't know that I put it in the shopping list. I'd put in the speed limit, absolutely. So I think that's number one.
And the ballot,
Concepts.
And the bollards, or some other
common device or whatever, what do you want to call it?
device to separate bicycling from traffic.
So I mean, I trust Terry to come up with a good resolution we'll look at, but what's the downside of putting a shopping list? Where, like, we say yes to your 70%, we say yes to the concept, we say yes to this.
But there's no downside.
I think one of the downsides is we don't know, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Is we don't know all the things, so
Right, okay.
that's why I prefer to raise the issues and kind of frame our concerns with the issues, so we're not precluding a solution we haven't thought about. Because I would like, I think the bollards are going to be problematic. I think it's really tight with the center turn lane. You're going to have 5 feet bollard car. I think it's going to look and feel weird. And so I would hope that maybe there's some other solution that they would consider, if not at the 70, at the 30, at the 100% mark. But look, we can put it as in a such as, I don't have a problem with it, but I guess I don't want to preclude to know all those solutions in a reso.
Benefit, I think, to at least including principles in the resolution is that it shows that, this is not a done deal. This is more contextual in terms of a larger scale project. I do want people to really understand that this is not just done, you're not coming out with a coat of paint and then that's it. That there are
Fair.
longer term, that could take a couple of years.
And I'll make sure there's a whereas that, what
Right.
the remainder of the project,
Right.
including the
Right.
pedestrian
whereas is gonna
areas,
be
the
important.
sidewalks, that will be addressed as part of the bigger
Bigger picture.
project, and the final, they have a bunch of acronyms that explain that, what some of this is kind of this interim work order. They look at this as a work order
Right.
versus the other things like the project, which is in full.
The big thing.
But it's a very big, and one thing they impressed upon me, or tried to anyway, that this is a very big give of doing this level of interim accommodation. They don't typically do it. Now, take it for, don't kill the messengers. Yeah, don't kill the messengers. But I don't think it's typical.
Okay, yeah. Well, no, it doesn't sound it. So that's, and that is good.
Normally, we'd be waiting and it would be 5 years from now, we'd have the 100%. You know. Mayor, I wanted to mention something and I have a point of order for you.
Okay.
I happen to notice when I just clicked on attendees, we have one and it happens to be Peter Bilton, who is the Safe Walking Committee chairperson. So I don't know, I know we have public comment towards the end, but I'm letting
Okay,
you know I
thanks for letting
happen,
me know.
since I've been invoking his memo.
When we exactly, when we get there, then he can add
Yeah,
at that
just
point.
wanted to
Thank
let you
you.
know he was there.
Thank you.
Point of order, though, Mayor, want to hear Peter's comments now before we move on to other topics, as there may well be.
Away from what he
and
submitted?
Rather than
I don't
admit him,
know,
rather than admit him as a member of the public, admit him as commentary on SWAC input to the resolution and the plan.
For me, it's just
Strictly-
allowing him to speak on Zoom
It's
at
up to
this
the
point.
mayor.
I don't know the distinction. I mean, he is, you know, we did invite them to give us comments, but
But he did not include those comments here?
he put them in the memo. He represented in the memo to the council and what the group discussion was along the lines of what Phil and I outlined. So if you, I just wanted you, I didn't want to not tell you that.
That
That's
he's
why-
there.
That he was there.
All right, I'll wait till when we get to the public,
Okay.
because the other two should be pretty
Okay.
short, then we can, because when the member of the public chimes in, if they choose to, then we can go back and answer all those questions at that time.
I just,
Thank you for
if he had
sharing.
been in the room, you might have said, oh, there he is right there.
Yeah.
Come on
Yeah.
over.
And just to add, before we wrap up the conversation on Upper Raritan, you know, we were concerned about awareness. And I wrote down in my notes that all schools and houses of worship, social media and businesses should be notified once we put all these in place about the new turns and everything else, so people would be fully aware that this is coming, and you just want to keep people in the know that it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, so you create more awareness of what's going to happen in that area. So we need to do a whole blitz on just making people aware about the new turns and what have you in that area.
Just briefly, I think once we pass the resolution, people to know what we're talking about could get all this available on the website. You know,
Yeah,
no one will look at
tomorrow.
it, it's your problem.
Tomorrow, we said that we would,
Absolutely.
it was sequestered until tonight, so tomorrow we can share with general public. All righty, anything else on this? All right. All right, so now we're gonna move to the wonderful subject.
Some pumps.
So,
I can do a quick lead in. That's all right. So Phil is familiar with this issue because you worked when you were in Public Works, but so the Environmental Commission has has been advocating for a while to update our sump pump ordinance, and it was really based on construction that had occurred where there was concerns about the placement of the sump pumps and to make sure that our code was uniform and that we didn't have sump pumps just flowing directly into the street, particularly with icy roadways and freezing conditions. So the Public Works Committee, thank you. We reviewed the concept and we're comfortable moving forward. And then, but Terry, I guess I would just defer to you.
I could walk you through kind of, it's a pretty basic
Yeah.
concept, and I thank Salka for putting the draft ordinance together. But essentially, we were kind of addressing two things. One, we have a lot of legacy sump pumps that drain out onto the street, and sometimes it's in a variety of different ways, but typically you'll see that little hole in the curb that kind of lets water out, and usually around wet conditions, but some sump pumps are pumping a lot. And what we wanted to figure out were what we've got a lot of older pre-existing sump pumps and configurations in town, pre-regulations. What do we do with those? Because the issue that came up is, the preference is to have sump pumps drain on the property, whoever you're on the property itself, in the front yard typically. And then, any little dribbles onto the street, that's fine, but that's preferred. But we have all these other ones. So what this ordinance basically does is it grandfathers existing configurations, except for ones that are causing a problem. And the biggest problem we see, and this has come up in meetings in the past, is pumping especially during the winter months, due to water table issues and what have you, which creates ice, and ice in particular in the roadway and in crosswalk areas in particular. And so what this ordinance says, is if we find that, we can knock on your door and say, you gotta reconfigure this and have it be rerouted to drain on your front yard, basically, or in some other way that doesn't do this anymore. Moving forward, you just can't do it that way. So any new sump pump permits, they gotta drain on the yard, and that's just the way it is. If we have a situation, and there are probably a handful of these in town, where we have a chronic problem because the homeowner has a chronic problem of a very wet basement, pump, dry conditions all the time. We have the opportunity to bring in the engineer to look at other creative solutions, and any exceptions to this would have to go through the borough engineer's office. And violations will go through our enforcement department. So that's basically it. We've been kind of doing this in a friendly neighborly way when we've encountered these problems, and we've had a pretty good reception with the homeowners where they accommodated. They saw the problem and they were willing to accommodate. There were a couple roadways after they got repaved. The problem wasn't there, and then it was there due to new drainage, and they worked with us. So I'm optimistic, but I do think we need that kind of escape valve with the help of our engineer to work with homeowners that have a problem. And we may, in some cases, we may not be able to accommodate, but we'll cross those when we find them. By and large, this should be solvable, and I'm hopeful that it will also help with wear and tear on the roadways. Having less of that drainage, especially the drainage that freezes in the winter, will help with kind of the duration of our repaving projects too.
And just to clarify for the folks at home, I think I said bring our ordinance up to code. I meant just up to date. I'm sorry.
Well, our ordinance is basically
that's an important
silent on
consideration.
the issue,
Yeah.
other than you can't tie into the sanitary system, which is a big no-no.
Right.
Right. But this was a recurring problem, and right, the Environmental Commission was really focused on addressing it. And yeah, thank you, Terry, and Southern for putting that together.
So
We're
this
not
is
the
for
only town,
something.
it was in the league's it was
Right.
at one session at the league.
Oh, I didn't know
People are
that.
having all
It's
kind of
okay.
issues across the state with it.
I will mention, because of where we are in the year, we're not proposing introduction until next year, but since we had this meeting on the books, we figured why not talk about it since we,
I just have one question which Terry just mentioned, which is the septic tie-in. We've had some, DEP has put them out, actually it's 500-year storms, but on the 100-year storms, which we're getting more of, I'm a little, I don't think it's necessarily the ordinance, it's the enforcement. Who decides how much is too much and when?
I don't know what you mean, I'm sorry. Too much of what?
When does somebody's sump pump not sheeting across the front yard but draining into the street become a problem with more and more of these 100-year storms?
Well,
It's the enforcement issue I'm concerned about. And it may be more how we administer it, because I don't disagree with trying to resolve a problem first. And rather than just, if suddenly there's water coming in from your basement and it goes anywhere on a public space, you're in violation, you have to fix it. You can't do that. But if you look at the history of the 100-year storms we've had over the last 2 years, even anecdotally walking around the streets, and I've been down your street more times than I care to notice, when I was in public works, that the 100-year storms are causing more problems. So I don't know that we can even build it into any ordinance. I just have some concern that the 100-year storms are more frequent.
yeah,
We need to make sure that somewhere along the way, we have reasonably objective standards to enforce it. And then, flip siding it, the septic hookup, because they still do exist.
we
Yes,
find
they
them when
Yeah,
we're
we
out there and
call-
we address
Yeah,
them.
because we're paying for them.
Right, and it's a no-go.
We're paying for them to drain their basements.
I would suggest, maybe we can review the draft again.
Yeah, we have
See-
time.
Yeah, we have time to see where we want to tighten it up. And we meet again as.
Yeah, we do meet again,
I think we meet again
not next week,
this
week
month.
after.
Yeah, okay.
I just, is there any way that we can provide homeowners who have this problem with ideas and resources about how to fix it? Like like, you buy a house, there's a hole in your curb, the water goes out, you didn't even think about that when you're buying the house. We knock on the door and say, you gotta fix it. Or
Only if
is-
it's a nuisance.
Well, whatever, I mean, like, it's a
Or
really bad
hazard,
one.
I
It's
should
a
say,
hazard.
Yeah.
We got-
unsafe.
It's a hazard, they know it's a hazard, but I would imagine that folks don't, unless we're gonna tell them, but then is there, who fixes this or who, like, is
You
there?
gotta, I assume it's a plumber, but basically, we know enough to tell them they gotta reroute this thing, and we've done it, you know,
Okay.
to drain, they'll pipe it, and then there's this little thing that pops up in your yard, and it goes that way. They'll have to hire somebody to actually
Yeah,
implement
I
it, but
guess
we
what
can
it-
coach if that's. what
Right,
you're
I'm
asking.
just, I want us to be able to coach, to be
Yeah.
able to say, like, you need this to go here, because I don't want them to go out and hire a plumber and it's wrong, or hire, it doesn't, you know, or
Yeah.
anything we can do, any fact FAQ that we get out about, here's what you need to do to fix it, I think that would be.
Or here are the
A pamphlet.
recommended fixes, yeah.
Here they
Yeah.
recommend.
But most of them are gonna have to work with some kind of contractor unless they happen to do that.
Right, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, because it's gonna require some plumbing, but it's not, I'm actually more worried about the ones where I know they're on some like underground river or something, and it's like bailing out their house
Right.
24/7, 360 days a year, you know? And what are the options for them? Because I really do feel bad.
Yeah,
we
'cause
have
you drive
some
past them, it's just
hazardous
always
conditions
running, yeah.
I have a house in my head, and it's creating a
Mhm.
fairly hazardous condition in the winter, right in the middle of a big busy crosswalk.
And it's just
Yeah.
pure ice.
Yeah.
If we were.
That's why we go blues.
I agree with what Matt is saying. Actually, because there are recommended fixes for that, make sure that there's sheeting. Do you have square footage for proper sheeting? Do you sheet to the backyard depending on what
Drainage
your
and-
grade,
yeah.
what your grading is, because we have all kinds of grading.
Some
in
people,
our park.
they already do pump to the
Yeah, oh, they
backyards,
pump
that's
to
how
the
it is,
backyard.
yeah.
But if we were, I don't know, do we need to incorporate it or have a policy? I think maybe it would need to be in there. If we were gonna require them to correct it as an environmental correction for the neighborhood, would we waive any permits, permit fees? You still require a permit, but would we waive the permit fee? You know, if we're requiring it to fix it, should we waive the permit fee that the plumber would have to take out, because it's minimum $100, you know, just for the permit plus the percentage, you know, on cost. So it could get pricey, and we're making them do it, so.
Yeah, I don't know enough, and that's a good question for code enforcement. Would rerouting
Cost.
that have a permit
Yeah, I
associated
mean,
with it? I don't
just-
even know.
just
That
to
could be
make-
part
just
of
to
the
make it
ordinance if they're
fair.
found in.
Yeah,
as a
there's
legacy.
no permit fee if we require you to fix it.
Let me just
Yeah.
find out if there's a
And-
permit
and
required.
Tying into that, would we stay, do we need to deal with, or would we simply just stay with it as part of enforcement to make sure it's done correctly?
Well, it sounds like at least this was a good discussion, and maybe we can drill down on some of those, maybe.
I'm
They
not
may,
opposed
a
to
new
it, just-
person may want to fix it compared to a lawsuit if somebody slipped and fall.
Thank you, yes. And that's exactly what I was
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
say.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You
and
know?
also-
Have you seen North Fourth?
Yeah, well,
You
and
may want to
also
fix it
too-
compared to a
and
hefty
I-
lawsuit.
Yeah, and my apologies for speaking out of turn, but even if there's a licensed plumber required, you know, they're gonna have to close out the permit, right? So,
Yeah.
but I mean, those, like you said, it's in the weeds. We can definitely like look
Yeah,
back
I-
into it, yeah.
But when you get into an enforcement like that, you know, with the public and you're making them do it, and it's something that we're telling somebody whose basement filled up in a 100-year storm with 3 inches of water, you know, on carpeted floors and ruined the whole basement. You know, we're telling, well, you know, you gotta tear it all out and do it over again. You know, I think we should be a little more considerate of what's in, you know, the fact that it does create that kind of situation, and that if we're requiring them to do that, at least not charge. the
I
permit.
also think we can also have some practice and you can correct me if I'm wrong, sorry, like, if we just had Hurricane Sandy or whatever, are we gonna
Right,
be
but
out there
then-
with our pen
Yeah.
and paper
Right.
When
monitoring
everybody's
what's
going through
pumping into the
stuff,
road?
yeah, yeah.
We're gonna be
That's correct.
pretty darn friendly and helpful.
And neighborly.
Yeah,
yeah.
Looking at
But
our
we're
neighbors.
really talking about every day, run of the mill,
Correct.
day to
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
You know how some of the houses that
You
you
know.
drive by,
Oh,
you
yeah.
walk by
People
and
had,
they just
Oh,
run
yeah.
it.
had all sorts of, shop
Right.
vacs pumping,
Yeah,
who knows
right,
where.
yeah, yeah.
You do what you gotta do in an emergency situation, but,
This is
I
every
think people
season.
are thinking about those finished basements in a new way because of, or what kind
Exactly.
of infrastructure they need to protect them, because it is, the environment's changing.
I mean, and the thing is too, is that I'm
I think
definitely.
this needs
sensitive
further
to that.
discussion. I think it
Okay.
needs to go back to
Yeah.
committee and have much more discussion on it, because
Thanks.
we
And we
keep
do
going
have-
back to layers of the onions with this thing,
Yeah,
and it
and-
really
and we
needs
do
more
have time. We
conversation.
do have time, because
There's
we
nothing-
can't introduce it and get it
And there's
done.
nothing, horrible right now. We're handling it on a case by case, but we thought we needed a policy that's kind of.
No, you're right on
Articulate.
that.
I think
You're
it needs
right.
to dig down some more.
And-
Go
and
back
I-
to committee
I'm
and get
gonna
more
research
baked.
Some of these things that you put on as well and talk to
Mhm.
Terry.
So right now, it goes to code and code comes out and. speaks
We'll
to
get the
homeowner.
complaint and
Mhm.
often it'll go to Public Works, and because it's the road hazard
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then we go
Mhm.
look at it,
Mhm.
and then typically, because Mike's a nice guy and he knows a lot about it, he'll go and try to coach the person. I think the violations would go through, we'll have to iron out
Right.
code. That's one of the areas in the draft that we wanted to work out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I guess we wanted to test this general direction.
It's like similar when someone, oh, my water sewer bill, and then someone from the borough comes out and say, hey, your toilet is leaking, it's been running
That's
for 60 days,
Yeah.
90 days since the quarter started. So, I mean, similar.
Different
in that-
departments.
I know, different departments, but kind of
Well, it
similar
happened to me.
coaching, but
You're
but
right,
they
it happened
come,
to
They
me.
do,
you know.
and we will. And
Yeah.
typically, this is not, I don't want you to be worried that we're talking about 150 homes and for the second this
No.
gets
Yeah,
enacted,
yeah.
this is not, this is the higher priority came from the Environmental Commission, which is the new ones.
Yeah.
What do we do about the new ones? And in light of that new development that came up.
And I
you
did
know,
bury the lead.
Yeah.
This is the impetus is new construction, making sure that new construction does not
Mhm.
flush water directly.
Or
into the
new sump
street, is
pumps
on site.
that were on old
If
construction.
there's a problem, and I'm definitely sensitive to fees too, but if there's a manifest issue, then that homeowner probably needs to understand that they have to address that, just like anything.
But it's good
yeah,
to-
but we'll discuss it committee.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we get something on our record saying this is what we have to do, so people don't say, oh, you just made this up.
Well, it is awkward, like if someone gives you a hard time and they don't have anything, and like, this is the right thing to do. You can't have this doing this,
Right.
So anyway.
Anything I gotta look at when I go to buy a house.
Mhm. Sidewalk, front sidewalk.
My big
That's-
advice, inspect your sewer line.
Yes, on your sidewalk.
Sidewalk before, you won't even get insured.
3 to 5
Oh,
years.
the insurance company won't even insure you
Until
now?
get it fixed. You
Ah,
gotta do that.
that's good, that's good.
That's true. They
That's
do
when I
some-
call Terry, do we still have that sidewalk program?
Yes, we do. We have the sidewalk ordinance on the books.
Program is in hiatus right now.
When we get more money again, we can go back to
Yeah.
that. Anything else on the sub pump? So we all
Thank
agree this needs to go back to committee for further discussion.
I'll write up our notes and.
Yeah, well, we got a
we'll-
meeting
we'll
in 2
revisit
weeks.
it.
so-
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
All right, the next thing on the agenda is that our reorganization meeting, which is, our reorg is gonna be January 7th. And-
Nope. Is that right, Jim?
Mhm.
7?
So late.
I know, because,
Really
yeah,
Yeah,
it seems
it's-
late.
Yeah, the year starts on
Rudderless, the
Wednesday,
Weird.
doesn't it?
Yeah, the year
Oh,
starts out weird,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm all out of it. Sorry, Mayor. I just had a
Council
right.
night.
That's the
Actually
first
our
Tuesday.
busiest time of the year,
Uh-uh,
doing 3 reorgs a day.
oh, well. Well,
Also, we have all this extra
Ju-
time.
yes, just a gentle reminder that please submit your your year-end review. We need to send them to myself and Harry, because we want to put them on the website. So everybody can see the body of work that you've done through the year. And then I'll make a brief summary of all of that. Along with that, this year, our portfolio is going to be not changing for most people. So our portfolio is gonna stay the same. The only portfolio that will change, Jason is now gonna switch over, and the new person coming on will fit in with the portfolio that Jason had. That's it. So the only thing that's really left on this is we have to choose a council president. You guys have to choose a council president. And I just want to go over some of the roles and responsibility of the council president. The council president, currently we meet on Tuesdays, and we meet anywhere between 12 and 3 p.m. on a Tuesday to go over the agenda. And we talk about items that will be on the agenda. Terry, myself, our attorney, Jennifer, and the council president. So that's one of the responsibility. During that meeting, whatever is being discussed that needs to be shared with the governing body, the council president's responsibility is to bring and share, especially if there's something that needs to be brought to each and everyone's attention. If something was discussed in committee and it's going to go on the agenda, and everyone, we did not have a work session, has to be an emergency thing, and we're adding it to the agenda, the council president will reach out to all the council members and advise them of what's going to be on the agenda that they may or may not be aware of, or any questions they may have on anything on the agenda, they can bring it to the council president, and the council president will keep them informed, keep myself informed, and Terry informed. If there's any changes, the council president will come back to me, let me know, and then I'll reach out to Terry/attorneys for any kind of changes. Another part of the council president's situation is that it's all council members that will vote on the council president for the upcoming year. The council president will serve for 1 year, and the council president will preside over all meetings when the mayor is not available. So all the public meetings, the mayor is not available, that the council president shall provide over those meetings. The council president's term of office shall be 1 year, which is done annually. He or she can be chosen to serve more than that 1 year term, and that will be determined by the members of the governing body. Council president shall serve as responsibility. Council president shall serve as a liaison between the governing body and all the authorities, boards and committees and agency, except otherwise provided by a state statute or ordinance. So if something that doesn't fall under those, then the council president shall preside over those meetings. For example, if the chair of public safety is not going to be there and there's not a second person, or the council president can go to that meeting and can preside over those meetings. So the council president have a lot of latitude where that is concerned. So the council president can go to any of those meetings that are there. The council president shall oversee the annual goals and objective sessions of the governing body and create reports from the work sessions and get the goals together for the goals from department heads, the goals from all the governing body, put it all together, because in the end, the council president, in cooperation with the mayor and the administrator, shall put these goals together. So you work with the mayor, administrator, your department head, and to get as much goals and objective from the governing bodies in which they will work, the governing body will work with. And we will meet this year. I think we want to meet in February as soon as possible, so our goals can be clear of what it is that we want to do for the year, or for 2025 and beyond. So let's say 3 years out, the council president, we can work with that, so we all know what our goals and objective will be for the next 3 years. So that will be some of the objectives from the goal session with the council president. With that said, I just went over a brief overview of the roles and responsibilities of the council president. There will be other responsibilities that will be assigned throughout the year. And as I said, when the mayor is not there, the council president is the one that is tapped with making sure that the borough runs smoothly and effectively. I just wanted us to give a brief overview of the goals and responsibility of the council president. I have 2 people here that served this council president. Did I miss anything, Phil?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
Council president?
No, Mayor.
Okay. With that said, Jason is out tonight, and I think we want to, traditionally what we do is that we don't vote on anything, but we select someone who we think that we want to lead as the council president for the upcoming year. So Jennifer can have that in the record, so we can choose someone tonight. And then that will be easy at our reorg. At that time, we would say who votes for who nominates and who seconds the nomination of the council president. So we can do that tonight, to be clear. So that's behind us. We already have our portfolios together. So this is the only piece that's outstanding. And I'm going to leave that alone for you to work amongst each other and decide who will be your council president for next year. I don't vote.
I
So
don't vote this time either.
No, you vote now.
you vote now.
Okay.
You're still there.
Your portfolio is still quite active. So you still have a voice.
I'm comfortable leaving everything the way it is. We're leaving everything else other than the change with the new council member coming in. I'm fine with that.
Don't we historically do this at a caucus meeting?
We're not, this is the caucus.
No, this is still the public meeting.
This is a
But
public meeting. It's
This
not a
is the
caucus.
public meeting. We have heard in the past, we've had some challenges about violation or not violating the sunshine law. And I have been advised that if we're going to choose amongst ourselves, or we're going to have a caucus, that it's still open because we're gathering as a governing body, that the public has a right to hear whatever we're going to say, or we're not taking any action on anything. And this is one of those meetings where we're not taking action, so this can be done in this setting. Am I correct, Borough Attorney?
Yes, that is correct.
So
Could you please speak to how we caucus or how we don't caucus, or how the caucus meeting should be to select our new leaders going to next year and our roles/responsibilities or our portfolio?
Yeah, of course. So first off, let me just first start off that every time that there is business being discussed either by the administration or by the council, and you have a quorum, it's a public meeting. It can't be discussed in private. So first thing is, after we do that, amongst yourselves, and a lot of you are very experienced and know this, that many of you will sit privately, one or with the other one, and decide who's going to be heading up as council president. I don't know if some of you have met with each other, but I think it's important to have that decided today. And if there's committees that are outstanding and that you feel that you want to exchange that in exchange for a vote or whatever it is, that's obviously up to you as well.
I know in the past, we were told that we could meet, we could sequester ourselves and have these caucus meetings. But we were told that that opinion was not quite so, and this is the proper format in which to do these meetings.
Well, hasn't it traditionally been, even though they only serve 1 year, that they're there for 2?
Yes, that was decided amongst ourselves, that the person can serve 2 years or more. For example, I served almost 10 years as council president because nobody wanted to do it. So it's totally up to the governing body, because every year they will be like, no, let her do it. No, let her do it. And it wound up to be 9.5 years. Until I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I know, I was
Been
like,
there,
I'm
done
done.
that.
I'm done. It's too much work. I'm done. So that's what it traditionally has been. So it's up to the governing body to say, I want this person to continue for the next 10 years, 15 years, whatever, or we want to have a change. It's totally up to each and every one of you to decide amongst yourself, who do you want to see in that role? So with that being said, I think you can choose to
I'm sorry.
nominate someone or.
Sorry, I'm surprised at this, and that's why I'm trying to figure it out, right?
Mm.
Like, I didn't expect that this is what we're gonna do tonight. I didn't expect this is the way that we were gonna conduct this, so I'm sort of taken aback.
I'm sorry.
Second of all, Jason's not here. We have a member, a significant member of our governing body who's not gonna have a voice. And I didn't know that we were doing this tonight, and I don't know if Jason did or not. Third of all, isn't a work session where you don't make
Well, we're not
decisions?
taking any actions, as the mayor said. You're gonna make a formal action at the reorg meeting, right? Because someone's, as she said, is gonna first and second it. But here's what the issue was that was coming through, and I don't know which individual was asking for this. To have a private conversation with all of you present as a quorum. There is no private conversations when there's a quorum, it's council business.
Well, unless you go to an executive session, but this is.
This
This
does
is not
not
exec-
qualify
This
as
is
an
not
exception for
executive
executive session.
No, it
Absolutely
doesn't.
not.
I'm kind of leaning, I'm kind of thinking, Matt's thinking, if things were gonna just remain the same, there's nothing to decide,
But if they're not,
but if that's not the consensus, then I'm kind of.
But there's 5 of you here.
Yes.
There is 5 of you, and we do have a quorum.
I'm fine with leaving it as it is.
The only change proposed would be moving Jason to Health and Human Services.
That's already been decided,
right, that's
because
been
Jason
decided.
told me he's
Right.
fine
No, I'm just
with the
saying, though,
reorganizational chart.
when we say as is, that would be the change.
And
I've had
that's
discussions with
mandated because
Jason.
there's a vacancy.
Yes. That there will be a vacancy in the new year.
Mayor, if it makes it a little bit easier for everybody and probably prompt the conversation is maybe first people want to talk about the committees that they have agreed to and that they have, since there is a switch now with Jason.
but that's.
No, it's already,
It's
that's
done?
all, that's all
It's done,
decided.
okay.
Yeah,
That's all decided.
Okay, it's decided.
Mhm. The only outstanding issue we have right now is who will preside over when I'm not here. It would be a council president
Yeah,
next year.
So are we, and I think I was actually a little unclear that we'd be actually making a decision on this tonight. But so is the expectation now that we kind of informally make a pitch and
yeah, sure.
that's,
Yeah.
That's why I went over what the roles and responsibilities of the council president is. That's why I went over that just now, because I
Did
know I
anyone-
had said this was gonna be on the agenda tonight.
Not this. It might have been-
Yes.
I didn't know this was gonna be on the agenda. If I missed it, I apologize, but I
it
didn't
was
know.
on, it was on the material.
I mean, it was on the reorganization meeting agenda. I didn't know that that included this.
Because that's a part of the whole reorg. And when I had conversations with all of you, we talked about the portfolio going next year, that the only change that would make would be the transition, that's it. And I spoke with Jason several times about him taking on that new portfolio, and then the vacancy would be filled by the incoming person. So this is the only thing that's left on the agenda. I know when I spoke to most of you, the conversation was that you wanted us to have a meeting. I spoke with our attorney, and our attorney told me that this would be the best avenue. If we're gonna have a meeting, we're all come together, because as all of you are aware, a number of years ago, we had a meeting at the Reformed Church, and it did not go so well. It was disruptive. It was abusive. It was discriminative on a lot of levels. And that did not work for us. The advice that we received from our former advisors / attorney was overruled. And I speak with our new attorney, and she said, this is the way it should be. Because we had people that showed up in those meetings, and they were saying that we were in violation, and we tried our best to have a caucus amongst ourselves, and we were told that we cannot have a caucus, because having a caucus is a meeting, because all of us are gathering and we're discussing. We're not taking any action, but we're having the discussion. And if you all can remember, it was not so pretty a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. So I want to be clear. We ran in clear and transparency. This is the transparency part that's where we are.
So.
So if you want to
yeah.
wait till Jason comes back, we'd have to have a special meeting
Sure.
when Jason is going to be here. Just to let you know, I will not be presiding at a special meeting. I'm going out for a medical procedure, so I will not be back for any of the special meetings. Our council president will then preside over the meeting.
I don't think we have to worry about any of that. We're just gonna stay with the
But
way
we
we are.
but
The
The
organizational chart
replacement, the
stays.
change is mandatory because there's a vacancy. It's gotta be done. It's a done deal.
Right,
It's
right.
over. And we're just gonna leave things the way they are. There's no need for any kind of fancy pants meeting or anything else. But if there's an issue, I don't
But
know.
is
I'm
there
not sure.
anyone interested in being council president? I think that's what I was trying to
That's,
say.
maybe that's the first thing we gotta decide.
That's why I
I'm
said,
not.
that's why I ran through this whole thing about
Uh-uh.
what the roles, responsibilities are of our council president.
Right.
So that's what's on the table.
I'm not-
I'm not in,
You are all
obviously.
Fine colleagues. I would love another turn. I know some others have expressed interest too. And I can get in a little more
I'm
into
not
that,
in.
but I would, I'd be honored to see you return.
So I'm interested also in council president. I think 2 years ago, when we did decide, more than 2 years ago, that we wanted to do a rotation, and we have a new member coming on. We have people changing portfolios, that we should kind of like start getting into the groove of switching. And giving other
My
people a
memory is that
shot.
I thought we had that discussion as well, and I thought we had a discussion, I thought we were gonna continue that discussion at a caucus meeting, but I certainly thought we had the discussion that we were gonna do 2-year terms, essentially 1 year after another, but then switch after 2, rather than have a 10-year president or a 5-year president or something like that, that we thought that there was value in flipping terms every 2 years. I thought that there was value in that, and I thought that we had agreed to that 2 years ago. And so I guess
2 years ago when Phil wanted a third term and we raised all hell with it. So,
It's part of the process. It's
We
part
didn't
of the
raise hell with you,
political
and I think it was
process.
I think that was I think it was a fourth, I think that was 4th or 5th. So nothing was, and I remember
How many years
that,
were you president?
well,
Two.
two.
He's in his second year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This will be, yeah. I do remember that conversation.
How many years did you serve, Phil?
I think 5,
Okay.
4 or 5.
Yeah, but we did have that conversation. That would be 2 years and then we'd pick somebody else.
I will say though that at the time, that was because there were a lot of shifts going on as well. And we
Yeah,
had
COVID.
several long-term, serving, remember Susie had served for 6 years. Prior to that, Elsie had served. We do
Forever.
have some, we have some major administrative things that I am really excited about. That I think I can bring a lot of skill to, particularly when it comes to our affordable housing plan, which is due up this year. And from an administrative standpoint, I would love to be able to work with the mayor and Terry and all of you on piecing that together. Because I think that is a particularly big deal. We talked a lot about bicycle and pedestrian plan, implementing and having a clear picture ahead on bike and ped plan, particularly as we move forward with road reconstruction. I think is going to be extremely essential. And the one thing we didn't talk about tonight is water and sewer infrastructure. We need to kind of map. We need to map the road forward on on how we're going to move. On how we're going to address some of our pipe issues. We are hemorrhaging some water, and we need to have a clear picture on what the next 5-10 years are going to be looking like from a capital needs standpoint, from a maintenance standpoint. And those are, and that's, those are 3 areas that I am really passionate about and do have a more of an administrative role. I love this position. I'm not here for the glory. I think it's, I would just ask for, your support. I think any of you would be a tremendous leader on this council. I want to say that too. It's not about that. It's really not. So that's.
What I'm gonna say is, how much I appreciate everything you have done for me. When I came on, you were a mentor, but you know how I am with my ethics, and we did say 2 years. So with that, I have to go with what we originally said. And I'm sorry, but
yeah, I think you've been a fantastic council president, but I think we had a decision that we made 2 years ago that we were going to flip every 2 years if somebody wanted it.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with your qualifications. It has nothing to do with I genuinely believe you've been a great council president. I think you would continue to be a great council president, but I feel compelled to stick to that 2-year flip as long as somebody is willing to step up and wanting to do it. And so
So that is a tradition, though. There's nothing in our bylaws
You're right.
that
There isn't.
that
100%.
states
There
that.
isn't, but
And
we all
it's not-
agreed to
but
it.
but my
and
memory is we
I
agreed
don't
to
go
that.
back on, I don't go back on my word. That's
What did
why
we
I'm
agree
saying
to
it.
exactly? though?
That
2
it,
years.
that it would be a two
It's a 1-year
years,
term.
2-year rotation.
2-year
rotation.
rotation, and that if nobody else wanted it, then the president would stay, but if somebody else wanted it, we would pick somebody else for the year, and then if they didn't want it the next second year, we would pick somebody else, but if they did want the second year, they'd get the second year, and then we'd pick somebody else after that. Whether it was you again or not, it could go back and forth between you, but we did say 2 years, and I have to stick with my word.
That's my memory of our discussions at the infamous caucus meeting that and I was in the impression we're gonna have another one of those, and I thought that that's where we were gonna have that discussion. The fact that we're doing it like this is painful and it sucks, Matt, and I apologize for that.
Yeah, and
I
it's
did
nothing
not wanna
against you,
do
you
this,
know how I feel about you, but we did agree
But
to
my,
that.
that's my memory as well, and I thought that we were gonna have that discussion amongst ourselves, and I guess we can't, so it has to be, and if it has to be this way, it has to be this way, but that's my memory, is that we had that decision 2 years ago that we were gonna flip every 2 years. Assuming as Tara talked about it.
I don't, I didn't support the 2 years. The year before that, I proposed that we rotate all the positions, so everybody would have experience in every
I mean,
position.
if we're gonna rotate
And
that, I
there
think
was
we
no-
should rotate portfolios as
There-
well.
there
And I
was
would,
no
I would
support.
actually make
There-
that. Sorry, Phil.
There was no support for that. I'm just like I said, I'm just comfortable with the way things are. I don't want it again. I went through it. I went through the battles to keep it. I gracefully stepped aside from a number of positions. I'm comfortable with the way things are. But I'm not comfortable with conducting an actual vote without the caucus. I think the caucus is the way to proceed. But like I said, I'm comfortable with the way things are, but if we have to push it to a vote here, so be it.
So I think we should go with the 2 years rather than you have more than half of the council that hasn't took that experience as council president. We had a mayor a few years ago that resigned in the middle of her term. Look, I mean, Elsie was the most experienced person at that time that has went through every portfolio, that has been council president, and you have 4 of us, including a new person that's coming on, that never even been council president. So not saying the mayor's going anywhere, but I think we
Never
should
know.
all rotate. You never know, but I think we should all rotate and keep the rotation going. And we have a new person coming on also, you know, a new council member that when I joined, I know Phil, you know, this is a long term, about 90 days, felt like an introductory probational period at a new job where, you know, certain meetings, he came with, it's a lot by the time you're on, and, you know, some of those roles, different things that I think council president should be focusing on, and then also just assisting you guys on your own goals. Like, you know, some are more important and sensitive to the community, like economic development, which Matt will go and let us know is very more active with that when you have some portfolios that are, you know, rec and arts that are kind of self-sustaining. So I think we need to, you know, shift the focus on and then really getting the new person up and running Jason onto a new portfolio and so forth.
I think though that Matt had a good point that Jason's not here. And just.
So why don't you call a special meeting and then you guys can discuss?
I'm not gonna, if
What
that's
would
what
that
you
be,
wanna do.
next Tuesday?
If I may, Mayor,
Hmm.
many municipalities, when they're deciding who the council president, and if they have vice president, they decide amongst themselves and set, in the event that maybe one meets with the other two for coffee. And that's how they work it out. No one is meeting with the entire body to decide who the council president and the other leaders are. So that unfortunately did not happen here. And so going forward, in the event of lack of a special meeting, each of you, I know, are friends when you get out of here. You can have that conversation one-on-one, saying, hey, I think I can do this job, or hey, I can do that job, and to figure out who you have on your team. If this is what you're saying is that you didn't see this coming, that you were surprised about this, then it's a public meeting when it comes down to it. These are not conversations that are private, when it's the whole body. And I'm sorry.
So in the light that Jason isn't here, another option could be that a special meeting is held.
Well,
and
we
you
have a
could-
council meeting next week, right?
You all have a council, as I said, I'm going out on a sick leave.
Oh, well,
So you all have a council, so you all will be making that decision amongst yourselves next week again.
As part of a regular council meeting?
As a, you can have a
Work
special meeting on the
session.
17th, you can do the 17th work session and do that,
We
you
can have a
know.
work session after
We can have a
the
wax,
meeting too,
yeah,
right?
at the
Yeah, you
council.
can discuss
Yeah.
it. You can discuss it, right?
But it's still gonna be in an open forum.
Correct.
See, that's the thing, still
But
gonna
we
be,
won't,
still gonna be in the same kind of setting as this, but hopefully all your council members will be here. That's the difference.
But it does not stop you from reaching out to your fellow council people and finding out what their position is. That one person.
I
or
would
two
strongly
people.
advise that gets done, and I think I've advocated for that to happen. That people need to have conversations amongst yourself and see where it's gonna go. And I've been saying that all along. As
Did anybody
I
ask?
did 10 years, Susie did 6, Phil 5, Hirsch 2. Make a decision.
Did anybody ask if Jason was interested?
I did.
Oh, okay. I'm just asking.
No,
because
I did. He
he's
said
not
he's
here.
not.
Okay.
I had this conversation in particular that I had it with Jason on a private conversation. And then I told him what the portfolio, that what I hope to do. And if we weren't gonna move people around, this would be the easiest fit. If it comes back, if people say, no, we want to switch the portfolio, then that's a whole other conversation that needs to be had, and we're gonna have to delve into it. But this was, as far as I was concerned, this was the only open item that was there. So are we saying that we want to wait till Jason is here, so all our council members are available? You do a special meeting to get this done?
Well, I think
Because
in the interim,
that
we
could be
talk
done,
During the interim,
yeah,
because
here
it's
tonight.
not a holiday weekend,
no, so.
it's a regular weekend.
I don't know. I have a lot of, I have ice skating with Santa and breakfast with Santa.
I was
Well,
sad.
well, you know, we have a meeting, we had a meeting on the agenda for December 17th.
Mhm.
And that's a work session, so maybe that's the time you guys can meet at this work session and discuss this.
Yeah, but that's
Keep that on the
resolved.
calendar, yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, let's keep that on the calendar. That'd be good.
so that's a December 17th, you guys can meet back here again and discuss.
Get it resolved and cancel the meeting, because it's right
But we
before the
have a
holidays.
council meeting.
You have a council meeting on the 10th.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
this
so
is a council
With
meeting.
the work session? Oh, there's no.
No.
work session.
There's no work,
Okay.
just a regular council
Just a
meeting, because we
regular
don't do both.
Right.
So the following week is the 17th, and that's when we'll have a work session such as this, and that can be discussed
We
then,
always fill the other 2 Tuesdays in with a work session in case we need them.
in case we need it. So this may be an opportunity where you need something.
Carrie has her hand up.
Just
Yes.
real quick, I share this because my son has a concert on the 17th.
But you
which
would
I
need
don't
to be here.
But I remember last year Jason had this issue.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's the same night though, because his kids are different ages, so
We'll
you
check
just want
with-
to check in with
We'll
him.
check with him.
Because that's why we actually
Yeah.
didn't put our council meeting that late.
That's
because
true, 'cause
ran
we,
into a lot of.
Because
It's
we
a
were
little-
canceling
it's
the
a little
council meeting on the
late in the year.
17th
So
because
just
it's right upon the
since this
holiday.
is predicated on Jason's ability to be there. I just would mention that because I happen to realize my son's middle
So
school.
can we
has-
add it
But-
on
but-
for the
but-
council meeting?
But if Jason is unavailable because of family commitment, at this time of year, maybe you could pick another date to meet.
We'll
And
check-
just we'll have enough time to
let's just
notice
check-
it.
just check it
Just
with him.
pick-
We don't
That's what
need
I'm
to
saying,
do-
if
we don't need to
it's not
speculate.
feasible, choose another date where you all can meet.
Could we do it
Adequate
after,
time to
can we
meet.
do it after the council meeting next
Next
week?
Tuesday.
We could
I
I don't
add,
know.
we could tack a work session on to
Can
the
we?
end of the,
Yeah,
onto
you
the
can.
end of the meeting. We haven't
And if
noticed
you'd
that
like
meeting
to,
yet.
yes.
What's the, just point of
We'll figure it
order,
out tomorrow.
I'm sorry?
if there's a tie, what happens?
Well, hopefully you're not gonna have it. It's a whole other set of procedures. I could email it to you. And I don't wanna be in a position, and I'm sure the mayor doesn't wanna be where she's also getting involved in this. It's council business. But I know you guys are gonna come to some conclusion.
Well, we had a tie in the past,
We did. And
and the mayor had to break it.
broke it. But now you're saying the mayor's
She
not
wasn't
breaking it.
happy.
Well, yeah, well, because I believe that all of you guys are gonna.
No, I don't want you.
She gonna be
That's why she
happy.
don't want to go.
She
She
gonna
wants-
be
she doesn't want to go to.
She
She ain't gonna be happy either.
I remember Gail was very unhappy.
I'm gonna be very unhappy if it comes down to that too. Because how do you choose amongst your peers?
And I'm confident that you guys are not gonna need another meeting. You guys are gonna figure it out. I know.
All right, so let's say for, as of this moment, this is gonna be tabled, the council president is gonna be tabled until the meeting of the 10th. We're gonna have, add a special meeting just to discuss that
That's correct.
next Tuesday.
That's correct.
Work session next Tuesday. With that said, that's gonna be tabled. It's now time for.
Sorry, Josh.
It's now time for public comment. 21 minutes total, 3 minutes per speaker. Comments from members of the public will be heard, in person will be heard first, followed by those on Zoom, and no formal action will be taken.
Thank you. I enjoyed the inside politics tonight. Right?
See, we're transparent.
I also want to thank the borough for filling in my 18-hole golf course on my street, my mini golf course. Those holes have now been patched. I understand there's a grant that you're getting to redo the whole North 10. Somebody put that on Facebook. So if it's true, I thank you. If it's not, it'd be great to get one. That being said, as far as the road diet is concerned, this again is something we started at least 9.5 years ago. And 9 years ago, there was a little kid that was killed
Mhm.
on Route 27. In fact, today I was at the cemetery for his grandfather's first anniversary of his death. There was some religious ceremony. Then I looked in front of the grandfather's grave, and that kid's grave that was killed. So it has some, I guess, some special significance that tonight we're having this discussion. And we have to find a way to really make that street safe. I mean, the entire 27, and that's including on North Fourth, all those cars making lefts onto Raritan Avenue, which doesn't stop. What happened today, it happened yesterday. I watch all, I try to block them with my car, I tell them to move, but nobody listens, they just like ignore it and go. So, we gotta do something to keep that safe. But getting back to the road diet, how wide, Terry, how wide are the bike lanes?
5.
You want me to respond, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay. Usually we do the public comment and.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna take all the, sorry, we're gonna take all the public comments, I forgot. We're gonna take all your comments right now, then we'll respond back to you later.
Okay, if they're both 5 feet wide, why would the DOT just make one 10-foot lane for the bikes? Thereby eliminating it on 2 narrow lanes on each side and just take the south side, or the triangle side of the street, and make that a 10-foot bike lane. So they'll have more space, be a bigger buffer zone. I gotta be honest with you, in 25 years, I rarely see bikes being rode on those bike lanes that exist today on 27. Most bikes right on the sidewalk, whatever reason it is, including electric bikes. But just a 10-foot wide lane, that might be more accessible and more beneficial to the bikers and to the people walking on the sidewalks. And I would say keep the north side as a lane, because that's where all the stores are, commercial area, people turning in. It's gonna be a more busy area. Number 3 or 2, whatever number I'm up to. As far as the light, I'm not giving up on that light on Washington and 27. I'm gonna continue going after Senator Dyckman and the DOT, because I mean, every week, especially on the Sabbath, it's like a game, not a game, it's like watching the Keystone Road, just people running across the street trying to, just chicken run, trying to go to the other side of the road. And I try to stop cars, I try to get in, I don't wanna get killed, so I'm gonna stop doing that, otherwise says you're too old to do this stuff. But the kids don't know how to cross the street, so hopefully the road diet will allow that to shrink, the shrinkage will allow the traffic to slow down. But still, that flashing yellow light does nothing. It would be a 3 lane light, that would be great. 3 red light, yellow, green would be great. And the last thing I wanted to just ask is when cars turn left onto 27, are they supposed to be going into the turning lane or into the left lane?
30 seconds.
What was that?
No, keep going.
Oh, that's the question, has it left lane or turning lane? So that being said, I thank you for all the years of work going into this. I'm sure there's plenty of years left to still go into it. But you know, when we're in our 80s, we'll be able to turn around and say, look, we did something spectacular. We got the state to actually change a road, a highway in the state of New Jersey, which is not a small thing. Unfortunately, people have to die to get to this point, but hopefully that's the end, and people will get to live and enjoy and thrive in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jack Molnar. I live at 30 South Adelaide. I'm used to doing that in my other town, to say our address. Just for the record, I wanted you to know, I don't plan on running for council president. Okay, right now, I want to talk about the Upper Raritan Road diet. I've worked on this issue in my career for over 25 years. I ran a grad studio last semester for Route 35 in Perth Amboy that also has 4 lanes and no shoulders. So I'm pretty familiar with this. The only reason I'm here is because I don't like this alternative 2. But what I think you should really do is you should look at all 3 alternatives. The no build is an alternative. You have alternative 1, which doesn't have the 2-way left-hand turn lane. You have alternative 2. So you have 3 alternatives. You always have 3. Status quo is an alternative. And you should look at the pros and cons. Well, what wasn't discussed tonight was the cons of the 2-way left turn lane. You didn't talk about that at all. And I think you need to do more due diligence on this. That alternative 2 will not reduce speeds as much as alternative 1. And a crossing is a big issue. If you want lower speed limit, you're not going to get it with alternative 2. They'll always be going fast. I have lots of materials that I can share that has all this, but I think you should take a step back, go to SWAC, do a brainstorming on pros and cons, and then talk about it. That's what I would recommend, and I hope you do that. Please do not do alternative 2. Thank you.
Terry, anyone on Zoom?
There's one person there. Oh, hands up. Peter.
Hi, Peter, welcome.
Hold on, let me unmute you. Please just state your name so we know you're there.
Hi, so this is Peter Bilton. I live at 422 Cedar Avenue. I'm also the co-chairperson of the Safe Walking and Cycling Committee. I want to thank Terry and Councilman George for representing the SWAC committee's comments and giving us the opportunity to comment for your discussion today. And so I don't have a lot to add. I did want to kind of, clarify a bit that as Terry represented, there were mixed opinions on the committee. And part of the reason for that is that we had a few different conversations. So we weren't able to get all together because of the timing and come up with and to sit down and come up with a consensus and vote. So, those folks on the committee who had more experience with bicycling infrastructure in places like Hoboken and Jersey City, as Mayor was citing before, we're hoping, saw the value in promoting more and better infrastructure on the street. That being said, Terry's comments, to my knowledge, accurately represented DOT's interest and willingness in making physical infrastructure changes to the street. And I just wanted to kind of, so point out that there was mixed opinion was that.
I wanted council to put their phones down.
Are we okay?
Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I just picked up your mic. I wanted to both, just to encourage you to go back to DOT with questions. There's still time to ask them for clarification on things before you issue a resolution supporting a particular design. ask them questions, particularly about the speed limit. The latest national guidelines, which are adopted just automatically by law in New Jersey for setting speed limits and roadway striping and signals and such things, called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, was recently updated to give DOTs more latitude in setting speed limits, and to base it on what types of land uses, what types of traffic are expected, what the community's goals are. So I think that's something that you should definitely go to DOT now if you have the opportunity to ask them for that change to 30 miles per hour and understand well what their process is for that and how that decision will get made before issuing a resolution of support. And the committee would be glad to continue engaging with and supporting the council and the borough on this issue.
All right, thank you. Okay. I'm still taking notes.
Exactly, and I have notes on my phone, so.
Oh, okay, that's good.
I don't see any other hands up. Peter was the only person at home.
Okay, all right. Oh, sorry. I wrote notes on all my notes. Seeing that there's, seeing that.
One more comment.
Oh, sorry.
Was asking, and we'll work that there. Gotta say that before, reminded me. I just wanted to say two things. Number one, as far as the alternative number two, I think one of the reasons for the middle lane, the turning lane, was for the emergency traffic that flies all the way through from Edison to the hospitals in New Brunswick. They wanted to make sure that they would still have access. There was a backup to get straight to the hospitals, so and other emergency vehicles as well. The second thing I wanted to just say, I don't know, this is Safe Walking Committee, is that a borough committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to, I don't know if there's anybody from the Orthodox Jewish community that's on that committee. But we do a lot of walking, especially on Saturday, Friday nights and Saturdays, and safe walking is very important to us. I'll be glad to be possible for them to add somebody to that committee that can represent the views and the needs, I should say, of that community. Would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Well, Josh, let me just say this, that if you know anyone that, just to have them go on the website, fill out a volunteer application, and I'll set up an.
Absolutely.
Oh, there you go, an application.
About
Alright.
15 vacancies.
Lots of vacancies. All right, seeing that there's anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing there's no further, may I have a motion to close public participation?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Canavera?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Council President?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Cho Han?
Tam, can you answer Josh's question about how wide the bike lane is? Because that's where we were gonna go.
So in the proposal, the most recent proposal, we'll call it alternative number 3, thanks to Jack's comment, which is the center turn lane.
Right.
There are 5-foot bike lanes, and so if I was understanding Josh's point, you know, putting them on the south side only, and you'd have a 2-way cycle track on the south side, I'm guessing, or you're not accommodating, that's my question, I guess, is, you know, that wasn't explored, at least it wasn't shared with me. None of our concepts starting from our master plan on down to our more recent, and from 2003 to North Eastern Bike Ped Plan, didn't contemplate bike lanes only on the one side. So I don't have an engineering answer to that question. We can certainly ask the question if that was looked at.
Elsie, can I ask a question of the attorney
On the same subject?
on this subject?
Yes, please.
Would that be allowed? Because don't the cyclists have to follow the same laws as drivers? So if they're both on the same side, like, I'm just wondering legally if it's allowed.
They do, but I'd like to go back to the plans and see how is it that it would affect them. You know what I mean?
I mean, we have a 2-way cycle track, but on a much sleepier road on Walter. That's our little pilot beginning project. But that's a municipal road. I don't know. What the
Yeah, I'm
regulations
not
are.
sure. That's why I was.
Yeah, because
wondering.
sometimes they have it on the one and then it's the other side.
Yeah.
Back at the same side. So maybe if we go back to see where it is.
Yeah, because that's a
offline,
great suggestion.
And then we can talk about that.
Okay. Okay, the light on Route 27, that's ongoing. The conversation with the light on Route 27, that's an ongoing thing. And then the turn in lanes left, right, that's part of the discussion that we had. And then emergency vehicles, yes, they can use that middle lane that they would have a full access to. And Josh, you did get a volunteer application. Okay, so your questions were answered, I think. And then Jack's question about the different alternatives, we can take a look at that and we can ask questions.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
But when were we gonna do this resolution?
Well, I think that was the question that.
We agreed, we
I-
agreed to
We already
endorse
agreed
the
to
center
endorse
trail.
Okay.
resolution.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
that is, the sooner the better was the message I got
Yes.
from the DOT, in terms of, so I really defer to
Didn't-
this group.
I think we're comfortable as endorsing this plan and taking into account the concerns that are raised.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree. I think it's gotta move forward. I'm getting the message that sooner rather than later, and the other stuff we can fine tune. I'd like to see the resolution. I think our town deserves it. I think our pedestrians deserve it. We can fine tune the rest of it. The center lane is the concept, regardless of where you put the bike lanes. The reason for generally dividing it that way is if you put it all in once, you're gonna have people turning out of that lane across each other. It also constitutes another traffic lane on 27 is not the most appropriate installation. It might be on Walter, but it's definitely not on 27.
okay. And the question from Peter was about the 25 miles an hour, that there's some new change of foot that that is gonna be an ongoing conversation as far as I'm concerned, is to try to get them to change it to 25 miles an hour, so we're uniform in all parts of town.
Well, I'll need we said 30 earlier and now 25 there, so for the rest, I want,
I'm comfortable with 30 just because it matches the existing speed limit on the rest of Raritan Avenue.
so I guess,
30,
I don't.
because
I'm
they're at
asking- I'm not
35
telling-
now, they're at 35 now, so we're saying drop it down to.
Drop
I-
it from
right
35 to
Yeah,
30.
about halfway through I'd like to see it start to transit about halfway through the zone rather than a more abrupt turn when you get more to the center of town. Because right now,
It's at 35.
yeah.
The center of
but
town
you
is
hit-
30.
Yeah,
It's
but you're hitting
35,
it-
it's
you're
35
hitting it
Doughboy North.
basically between 8th and 6th, and it's a fairly abrupt.
And that's 35,
change.
right.
Yeah, and that's where the lanes change. It's where you go to one lane. So I would like to see that transition happen a little bit earlier. So if we're talking about going from 35 to 30, which I support 100%, I'd like to see it happen no further back than 10, than maybe even at 11.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
So that there's more of a transition as you come into the center of town.
thank you. I fixed my notes. I have it at 30. All righty. I think that was all the questions that we had from the public, and public session is officially closed. Is there anything else that we need to discuss, council members?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Wow. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone. See you on the
Good night.
10th.